This is the Vevor 3-in-1 automatic hat press. It has digital features and scroll adjusts, making this beginner friendly and easy to use. Reaching temperatures of upwards of 400 degrees, this is a press that you could utilize with sublimation, DTF prints, or printable vinyl, which we will be utilizing in today's video. As a 3-in-1 hat press, there are 3 different size faceplates, meaning you can use a wide variety of hat sizes and styles, and I will go in more detail about them later in today's video. This little lever is going to pull down especially your ball caps to keep them taut against the faceplate. As an automatic press, your element adjusts pressure itself, so there is no additional time or steps required into adjusting your element. This is a very simple process and it does auto release, so you do not have to run back to your press watching it the entire time. This is a very simple method. It is basically plug and play, and it is going to work best in any craft room. It is nice to tear apart and store into any little space, and any detail you need is located on the back of your press. Included are 3 faceplate sizes, which I do have more detail down in the description, but this first one is 6.1 inches by 3 inches, perfect for flat build, snapback, or youth ball caps. This second one is 6.6 inches by 2.7 inches, perfect for standard trucker caps, beanies, ball caps, or any adult size hats. The largest plate is 6.6 by 3.8 inches, and it is perfect for any larger working space for large trucker caps, large beanies, or visors. Usually I do use that medium size most often, but if you ever need to change these out, it is very simple. This bottom metal plate, you just simply slide onto your actual press and then screw on the bottom, which I will show you later in this portion of the video. However, I would like to go over everything that you will need for this project. Previously mentioned in the video, you can use a wide variety of substrates, but today I will be using printable HTV vinyl. Then you need some form of scissors, whatever type, crafting scissors, kitchen scissors, anything that's going to work for you. I do have this mini iron, and I'm going to show you why at the end of this. It is not necessary, but if you have one, pull it out. It might be a little bit helpful. You always need some form of tape. I don't actually utilize it because of the substrate that I'm using, but if you are using DTF prints, tape is going to be a best friend of yours, but make sure it is only heat transfer tape. Scotch tape or plastic tape will ruin your material. And last but not least, a lint roller. A lot of creators say this is optional. I don't believe this is optional. That lint can ruin your projects, so please grab these on hand. It does not matter what brand, just find whatever is cheapest option. Okay, now it is time to set up our actual press. There are 2 little screws that you can adjust. They do have a Phillips head adjustment on the bottom, but you can actually just use these with your fingers. Today, I am using the 6.6 by 2.7 faceplate. And I'm just showing you here that this is going to fit very nicely on this faceplate with enough pressure and adjustment, and nothing is hanging off the sides. That is what you are looking for. You never want your actual logo hanging off the faceplate because it is just not going to stick. Okay, now it is time to line up our base and line up our hat press, and it does take a little bit of finessing, but it isn't very hard. You slide it back and then line up the screw portion in your hat press and your element. And then by hand, you can manually screw these in. From one creator to another, do not get discouraged. This could totally have been me, but the first couple times trying to line these up was a bit of a challenge, mostly because they are hard to see. However, after 1 or 2 tries, I don't know if I built the muscle memory, but it was a lot easier. Just don't tighten these down too tight. And one last step, it's not necessary, but it is going to enhance your projects. Just because you don't see the dust on here doesn't mean that it hasn't collected. Make sure you just do a quick sweep. That way no dust is baking into the back of their hats. You don't want any of that weirdness. The material we will be using today is the Yupong Y6 502 Adult 5-paneled Snapback. I did purchase this from Shirt Space, and I do have the link down below. I believe they are around $6.05 a piece. Now, when they come in, you will see that it does have the structured back, so there isn't any of that netting. It is called the Classic, which I actually think these tags on the inside make them look a bit more professional, so I do like that. They are 60% cotton, 40% polyester, so even if you had a lighter material, this would not work for sublimation. And you never want to press these with this structure in the front. Although you do want to keep that. That way when you ship these out, they're being presented in just a more professional manner. The inside lip of the hat is going to fold out, and that is crucial for the pressing process because without that, you get inconsistent pressure on your design, and it does tend to leave some marks. Lastly, the hole in the back needs to be tightened just a bit so that when we pull the back of the hat down, the little metal bar does not pop through, causing slack in your pressing space. Now it is time to apply our hat to our heating element, and this is a super easy process, but I do recommend taking your time. That way everything is lined up and you don't overlook any mistakes. The back section of your hat is going to go underneath that metal bar. That metal bar is going to pull down the back of the hat so that your pressing element is taut and that everything is laid down flat. In the front, you will notice that lip is hanging over the pressing plate. That is crucial, and it actually kind of helps hold everything in place. Now, one thing to keep in mind, you want to make sure that the bill is not placed too far back. This can become a problem with your heating element and kind of smash this down when you try to press it. Once everything looks like it is pretty lined up, you will then take your lever at the bottom and pull that down. You will then see it pulls your ball cap down around that faceplate and makes everything very flat and snug. When we work with ball caps, there is always a little bit more give at the top. That is not ideal because this can cause creasing and issues with your design. So to help that lay down, I take the heat from my hand and rub it over those fibers. It kind of warms up the space and helps them relax. Then I will readjust the hat, and usually that does the trick. Now, please don't look at this as an optional step. I am a huge fan of lint rollers, and let me just tell you a little bit about lint. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean that it's not there. And when you press a design on top of lint, that does not allow it to secure down into the actual fibers of the material. So over time, when this is worn or washed, those little bit of fibers are going to detach from the actual surface of the t-shirt, and then that causes breakage and peeling, and then of course a bad customer review, which we do not want. So if a lint roller deters you from a bad customer review, just take the 1 second and $2 to lint roll your items. The first press is going to be our pre-press. This just heats up the material, removing any moisture or wrinkles, and you never want to go in with a bare heating element. It will scorch your materials. So make sure you are utilizing a Teflon sheet or a silicone pad. I am not a huge fan of silicone pads because they do change the actual temperature, and I'm just not a huge fan of that. During this step, we do not want to overheat our material, so I am only pressing this at 7 seconds. Although this is automatically set at 10 seconds, I'm just going to simply click the button once and it will raise the heating element. Now you can remove your Teflon sheet and you have a working space that is ready. Once those fibers are heated up, they become a bit more relaxed, so I like to go in and readjust to make sure this is as flat as possible. Any section that you touch with your hand, make sure you lint roll once again because you do not want those skin cells trapped behind your design. A beginner's tip, make sure that your transfer is as close to the actual design as possible on the bottom section here. If there is any overhang, it may fold up over the bill, causing lifting or wrinkles in your design, and that will ruin your project. Now it is time to center your design, and I find that hats are super easy to center basically because there is a small working space. And because this is transfer vinyl, this part is sticky, so I'm not going to utilize tape. But if you are using a DTF transfer, use a small amount of tape on each side to secure your design. Then you will place over your Teflon sheet and start the pressing process. This press is automatic, so when the timer clicks on 0, it is going to automatically pull up that element. I don't actually have to click anything. Another great thing is the pressure is already adjusted, so I do not have to worry about any of that. When this element pulls up, this is going to be extremely hot. And some vinyl is warm peel, cold peel. You would have to read your instructions, but this is one step that I have personally found that works best when I am pressing hats. So hats have a much more coarse material on the front. And the thing with your design is you really want those to hug into the fibers and fully secure down. So I like to take one more precautionary step and really rub these down in before I pull this transfer away. It just helps kind of marry the material to the fibers. This step is optional. However, over the years working with hats, I've noticed the top half of the design gets a bit more pressure than the bottom half. And I do believe that has something to do with the bill. So I like to take my little heat element and just rub it over the bottom section a bit more, securing that down. But you want to make sure that your element is not touching the bill of the hat because that can cause some scorching marks. Once again, as this cools down, I rub a bit more pressure over the design to really secure it down, and you can use a random shirt or a glove. Just make sure you're not burning your finger, and then it is time to remove our transfer film. Now, I always recommend using your patience and never ripping this off because you could disturb some of that vinyl, and then we are ready to do our final press, which just truly marries this into the fibers. Make sure you remember your Teflon sheet and then press start. We are going to run this for the full 10 seconds, and at the end of this, your hat is complete. And honestly, these should last for years. You're not washing them too often, but please let your customer know that when they do wash them, you never want to dry them on high heat. You never want to dry anything with any type of substrate with high heat. It is going to break down the actual materials. If you've made it this far through the tutorial, I would like to congratulate you because you've completed your first hat. And I would also like to give you a couple insider tips so that you can avoid the mistakes that I made in the beginning. Number one, I love to use a 5-paneled hat comparison to a 6-panel. 6-panel hats are going to give you a crease right down the center of your design, and although you can still utilize those hats, it makes it a bit harder to lay down the design. Number two, when you look at the finished product, you need to ensure that through the design, you can see the fibers of the hat. If you cannot see the fibers of the hat, that means this is not fully secured and it is going to lift up, peel, and chip away within a couple washes. The presentation of your product is key for your customers. Make sure we are putting back in the structured panel in the front and then adjusting the back section so that it's not completely gathered in the back. You want this to completely blow their mind when they open the box. Lastly, run over with your lint roller one more time. This may have collected dust from your workspace or from just moving around in the room, so one last lap around the hat and the presentation is going to be perfect. Make sure you check out the description box below because any additional information that I have to offer, including designs, is going to be down there. And if you want to learn how to utilize DTF transfers, check out my playlist. You can literally start your business with just a press.